Man, I mean, you set up so many things. I mean, I have lots of questions now, as we kind of shift this into the integration between combatives, and there's obviously Jiu Jitsu there that we've talked about so much. It comes up a lot, right? And it should.
Yep.
It's relevant, right? With the strength training.
Right.
And the other components of building human performance.
Yes.
Outside of the skill, which is Jiu Jitsu or whatever, firearms, whatever. But let's keep it martial arts focused here, but obviously we're talking about the integration of all the things. That's what the Combative Summit is.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that, just with regard to the human performance side, when we're starting to build strength, starting to build power, speed, capacity, all those other components in the hierarchy that exists there. And yes, we're agreed, in case you were wondering. We're agreed on the strength piece. Yeah. Yes. Strength is important.
Right. It's
foundational. It is fundamental. If you want to live longer, get stronger.
Yeah.
Right?
And if you're confused about it, just like, agree to wrestle to a guy that's twice as strong as you.
Yeah, that's one. That's one way. Even the Google doesn't really argue this too much.
Yeah, even if he has no skill, it's like it's not going to be fun.
Right.
It's not going to be fun, and it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, and there's a limitation to that, right? Like when all things are equated, right? If you have the guy that's the black belt, right, and he's wrestled the same, he's competed in the same tournaments and maybe beat the same guys or whatever else, and you have those two guys standing on the mat, they're the same height, the same weight, they learn from the same instructor.
Same skills,
right? Equated across the board. The stronger guy is likely going to have a very large advantage.
Right.
Again, looking at the hierarchy of how this stuff fits into the bigger piece.
Yeah. I'll give you a good example. I mean, when we did the ECQC, we had John Wellborn, right? Former NFL athlete. He didn't know shit.
That was one of the most
terrifying
weekends of my life.
I did not have a fucking good time.
Dominating,
it was awful. Yeah. Like he couldn't he wasn't able to win. But fuck, man, was that awful? That was not fun at all. So it's like when he was
John grabbed my gun because it was him and I on the retention drill.
Yeah.
And so Craig sets us up where like I've got a gun, he's got a gun, I hold his gun, and then he holds my gun.
It's not fair, dude.
When he grabbed it. There's very few times in my life that I've been the small guy, right? Or the weaker guy. And he grabbed it and I was like, fuck, this is bad. This is real bad. But here's the thing, right? So John had zero experience with grappling at all. He'd done some striking, so he had good, and obviously NFL player, right? So
he knows how to manhandle.
He's good on his feet. He knows how to move. He's physically very, very well-rounded physically and very strong. But I went with him in Evolutions twice, and I luckily won. But it was tough. But here's the thing, man. So he left and he signed up like the very next month for jiu-jitsu, and it's like, and I told I think he told me that at some point.
You're going to be in big trouble with the next ECQC, man.
He's like, you're the reason I signed up for jiu-jitsu. It's like, well, I'm never grappling with you again.
Ever. Yeah, we're done.
Never again. Because after 6 months, it's fucking over.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to be a good time for any of us. So.
I mean, that's a really good example and story for why this makes sense, right? For the grappler or, the combatives, the person that's exploring this world of combatives. And
he's also the reason I started strength training.
Is this a true story?
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, you're not joking.
Yeah.
Going in, were you a black belt when you took the ECQC?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I was a new black belt, but still, I was like, that was awful. I cannot have that happen to me publicly. Like, no.
Right. Which is an important thing to have that, again, that wake up moment, like the whistle hadn't even blown yet, right? Yeah. The get it on hadn't even happened yet. You knew as soon as you felt what you felt, you're in big trouble, right? This is gonna go. Yep. It's the game of life, and in this case, the ECQC, while they're trying to make matchups there to keep people safe and give people a look and all those kind of things, is not a weight class sport.
Right.
And
neither's life.
Yeah, neither's life. So I'm saying to John's point, like, well, I've been on the mat with a lot of guys before, maybe some bigger guys, but not one like this.
Never felt anything like that. That was like, okay.
All the skill in the world. Yeah. All the skill in the world, or maybe not, because, whatever. But
this is a gorilla who's intelligent. Like, that was awful.
It shows up, right? And it stuck with you, and you made some decisions, some life-changing decisions, right, to get in the strength thing. And then obviously that puts you guys together in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the performance picture. And by the way, if you don't mind, let me just say a quick thing, because we get a lot of shit for like the emphasis or our like depth or experience with jiu-jitsu. Especially, I mean, you saw here. I mean, I would say that there was very few guys who don't have at least some experience with jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah. And you'll hear instructors say things like, "We're not, that we're not doing jiu-jitsu," which we're not, of course. Right. Or even I've heard some instructors who don't really know what they're talking about. It's like jiu-jitsu is different from this. Now, if you were to pick one martial art, so to speak, or one thing to do, you would wrestle. Like that's for self-defense. That's what you would do. The truth is that, unless you're a kid or a teenager or really, I mean, unless you're going to do it at school, there's not a place to wrestle.
Right.
And also on top of that, wrestling is so competition focused that it specializes into the rule set of whatever wrestling is. Now, still, because of it being wrestling, it still carries over really, really well to everything else. But a 35-year-old guy is not going to go start wrestling.
Not signing up for
There's
wrestling.
no place to do it. You're going to get beat up. And if if you're insane and you go to like the local college, they're gonna beat the shit out of you, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not going to last very long. So what we have left is jiu-jitsu, which is good enough from a wrestling perspective, especially if you can do a couple of things to in your own training, and you can do this on your own during warm-ups and stuff, just a little bit of a shift in your way of doing things, that it's good enough. But the point being that if you're going to have depth in something in terms of a martial art, something that is going to round out your ability to integrate, again, the word integration, to integrate everything else, it needs to be a grappling art of some kind. Mm-hmm. And there's just no way around it. So the pressure, John always talks about pressure and how, pressure is the key to everything, the key to improvement. But the pressure that you get from day one, the technique that's layered on top of that, and the experience, just the sheer number of hours you spend on a mat with a fully resisting opponent, you can't find anything else that's going to come even close to that. So, so like at this point, because I used to kind of say the same thing. It's like, okay, self-defense day, jiu-jitsu day, we're learning how to fight. When we're doing jiu-jitsu, we're learning how to fight, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes as you get better, you get into some cool, flashy shit, and it's fun and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, man, we're trying to hold somebody down and do things that they don't want you to do to them, right? So, I think jiu-jitsu will always be a big part of this. And by the way, on the other side of that, people in this organization have introduced jiu-jitsu to more shooters and non-shooters and self-defense types, I think, than probably, they get one exposure to a Craig Douglas weekend and they're like, well, fuck, I got to go do jiu-jitsu because I just got my ass kicked and I had nothing. Like I had no skill, no base. Yep.
Well, it might be the whole, it's not the whole answer, but it's a really, again, going back to solving the problem of not being able to be competitive. We should start with the stuff that makes the most sense, where we get the most return on investment and the most value, and like the strength training.
Yeah, and in terms
the
of
jiu-jitsu training makes sense.
And in terms of return on investment, it's like the safest way to train too. I mean, I'd
agree.
Nothing's 100% safe, but what else are you going to do?
You just made the wrestling analogy or the wrestling comparison.
It's unsafe. We used to in my Krav Maga days for my advanced class, we put helmets on and fight, right? That's nobody's going to do that. Right. It's unsafe. Ultimately, you can't do that 4 nights a week.
Right.
But you can grapple 5, 6 days a week.
It's even more on that is it's accessible too. Just about anywhere you go in the United States. I mean, you'll be able to find.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's accessible and it's popular and people want to do it.